Auzubillahiminash-shaitanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. We have already examined in detail about the establishment of the United Nations or genesis of the United Nations. Our today's discussion is about structure of the United Nations. United Nations structure explained in chapter 3 and article number 7 of the Charter of the United Nations. There are 6 major organs. Number 1, the Assembly. Number 2, the Council. Number 3, the Economic and Social Council. Number 4, the Trusteeship Council. Number 5, International Court of Justice. And 6th organ, Secretariat. First of all, I explain you about most important body of the United Nations, the General Assembly. The General Assembly can be considered as a supervisory body of the United Nations and a central body of the United Nations. It resembles to a standing diplomatic conference, represent all member states with equal right of speech and vote on the basis of sovereign equality. The Charter has assigned wide powers of discussion and recommendation upon the Assembly on any question, including those associated with the maintenance of international peace and regulation of armaments. It has played a crucial role as an organ of the political settlement of peacemaking and peacekeeping. The Assembly has been authorized to initiate studies and make recommendations for promotion of functional collaborations among nations and for preservation of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all nations. Many subsidiary organs and ad hoc bodies have been established to functioning of the General Assembly. The Assembly also explained many activities, for example, mobilization of world opinions and act as a forum of multilateral diplomacy, and during the near about 74 years of its existence, it has extended its multi-dimensional activities. The General Assembly, comprising all member states of the United Nations, is based on the principle of sovereign equality. The Charter has conferred upon all members the right to equal representation, equal opportunity to participate in discussions, and equal voting power. Every member is entitled to send a delegation consisting of 5 members. The regular annual session of the Assembly is convened on the 3rd Tuesday in September. The Secretary General may also invoke the special session of the General Assembly at the request of the Security Council or of the majority member states. A new president and Vice presidents are elected for 1 year term at the beginning of each annual session of the General Assembly. The President presides over the plenary meeting of a session and conducts the discussions and debates. He may suspend any meeting, the debate on any issue under consideration. The President has complete control of the proceedings during the meeting. The provisional agenda of the Assembly, compiled by the Secretary General, includes the annual report of the Secretary General on the work of the United Nations and reports from other organs of the UN and subsidiary organs and General Assembly, and any report from the specialized agencies. A general committee consisted of president, vice president, and chairman of the main committees assists the president in the general conduct of the business of the assembly. The functions of the assembly, of its committees and subsidiary organs are carried on by the staff of the secretariat. The assembly executes its regular functions through a number of committees. The committee system of assembly is very unique and very important. The assembly is entitled to set up as many committees as it deems necessary for the efficient performance of its work. It has established 4 categories of committees, such as the main committees, procedural committees, standing committees, and ad hoc committees. Each new session of the General Assembly is required to set up 7 main committees. 1. Political and Security Committee, Economic and Financial Committee, Social, Humanitarian and Cultural Committee, Trusteeship Committee, Administrative and Budgetary Committee, Legal Committee. Apart from these, the Advisory Committee on Administrative and Budgetary Questions and the Committee on Contributions perform their duties continuously throughout the year. The decisions of the General Assembly are required to be made by a 2/3 majority of the members present and voting on the most important questions. For example, recommendations with regard to the maintenance of international peace and security, the election of the non-permanent members of the Security Council and members of the Economic and Social Council and Trusteeship Council, the admission of new members to the United Nations, the suspension of the rights and privileges of membership, the expulsion of members, questions regarding the operation of the trusteeship system, and budgetary questions. The decisions on other questions, including the determination of additional categories of questions which are to be decided by a 2/3 majority, can be made by a majority of members present and voting. Now we examine about another most important feature of General Assembly, and that is bloc voting, or in other words, voting bloc in the General Assembly. Many writers have expressed their concern about bloc voting in the General Assembly. It is generally agreed that there do exist in the Assembly several specific groups of states united on the basis of common ideology or race or common values in respect of cultural history or geographical situation. Of course, the General Assembly has officially recognized the existence of 7 groups in allocating the seats of the General Committee of the Assembly. The principal 7 groups are: number 1, the Arab states; number 2, the Africans; number 3, the Asian; number 4, the Latin; number 5, the Western European; and number 6, the Soviet Bloc and the Commonwealth countries. In a present period, Soviet Bloc is replaced by communist countries. The relative voting strength of these groups has been changed with addition of many new members. The Africans have formed the largest single group within the Assembly. Among these groups, the Soviet Bloc or Communist Bloc remained strong, is the most disciplined group, while other blocs have failed to play their role as a united bloc voting on different issues. The Arab League has casted bloc voting only on certain issues, and the African states have relied around the problems of racial discrimination and colonialism. Though the Western European or Latin American states have exchanged common views and informations, many of them have descended from bloc voting on many issues. In view of the numerical voting strength of the Afro-Asian members, it is not possible for any superpowers to mobilize 2/3 vote on any important question without the support of a large number of small states. Major powers have proposed for some sort of weightage voting in the Assembly, but no such proposals will win over the approval of majority members of the Assembly. After discussion about bloc voting, now I explain you powers and functions of the General Assembly. The General Assembly is playing its very important role as a multidimensional involvement of different activities, and its functions are fundamental to the operation of the United Nations. The Charter has broadly assigned the powers of discussion and recommendations on different issues according to the purview of the present Charter, particularly according to the Charter of 10. Article number 11 of the Charter provides that the General Assembly may discuss the general principles of cooperation for the maintenance of international peace and security, including the principles governing disarmament, and may make recommendations with regard to such principles to the members or to the Security Council or to both. In pursuance of this authority, the Assembly has repeatedly discussed various problems associated with the peacekeeping and peacemaking. The Assembly debates on the general principles of disarmament have proved to be constructive and helpful to the Security Council. In order to conduct negotiations and investigations on various problems of disarmament, the General Assembly has instituted the Atomic Energy Commission in 1946, the Disarmament Commission in 1952, and the Scientific Committee on the Effects of Radiation in 1955. The General Assembly is authorized to discuss any specific question involving maintenance of peace and security submitted before it by the Security Council or any member of the United Nations. It may draw attention of the Security Council to situations which are likely to endanger international peace and security. Article number 12, imposing a limitation on the deliberative powers of the General Assembly, enjoins that while the Security Council is exercising in respect of any dispute or situation the functions assigned to it in the present Charter. The General Assembly shall not make any recommendations with regard to that the disputes or situation unless the Security Council so requests. Article 14 explains that subject to limitations imposed by the article number 12, the General Assembly can recommend measures for the peaceful adjustment of any situation which may impair the general welfare or friendly relations among nations. The framers of the Charter presumed that the Security Council should have the exclusive responsibility for imposing collective sanctions against any threat to peace or act of aggression. In this regard, a very important and most important, the Uniting for Peace resolution has assigned to the Assembly a new responsibility for recommending collective enforcement measures for maintenance of world peace and security. Now I explain you about the Uniting for Peace resolution. The Uniting for Peace resolution represents a significant constitutional development within the United Nations system. This scheme has conferred additional powers on the General Assembly to recommend collective enforcement measures for dealing with any potential threat to peace. The proposal was first introduced during the early phase of the United Nations experiences with the Korean crisis. The Korean dispute took a serious turn after the invasion of South Korea by the Army of the People's Republic of North Korea on June 25th, 1950. The Secretary General immediately convened a meeting of Security Council which through a resolution adopted in the absence of Soviet delegates. noted that the action constituted a breach of the peace and called for an immediate end of hostilities. The Council, by its second resolution on June 27th, adopted, again in the absence of Soviet representative, recommended the members to furnish such assistance to the Republic of Korea as may be necessary to repel the armed attack. But with the return of the Soviet representative on 1st August 1950, it was evident that the Council would not be able to undertake any decision for directing the necessary collective enforcement measures to repel North Korean attack. The United States then, through a new scheme, proposed that the General Assembly should assume the responsibility for undertaking and directing collective enforcement measures to deal with any threat to peace, especially when the Security Council's activities would be stopped by the exercise of the great powers' right of veto. The draft resolution was submitted before the First Committee of the Assembly, and the general discussions were centered around the constitutional aspects of the proposals. The Soviet Bloc strongly opposed the resolution uniting for peace. The American proposal, with some minor changes, was finally adopted by the General Assembly on 3rd November 1950. Most important points and most important features of the Uniting for Peace resolution are these. Number 1, the resolution has proposed that the Assembly, if not already in session, can meet in special emergency session within 24 hours at the request of the majority of the United Nations members of the Security Council. Number 2, if the Security Council, due to lack of unanimity among permanent members, fails to discharge its primary responsibility in any case where there appears to be a threat to peace, the Assembly is empowered to consider the matter immediately. Number 3, the Assembly can make recommendation to members for collective measures, including the use of armed forces in the case of a breach of peace or acts of aggressions. Number 4, a peace observation committee of 14 has been established to observe and report on the situation in any area where there exists international tension, the continuation of which is likely to endanger the maintenance of international peace and security. Number 5, the resolution has recommended that every member should maintain within its armed forces elements to trained organized, and equipped that they could properly be made available for service at a United Nations unit. The Assembly requested the Secretary General to establish a panel of military experts to advise members on technical matters relating to the organization and training of military unit for United Nations service. Sixth and last point, a 14-member collective measures committee was formed to report on methods which might be used to strengthen international peace and security. Overall, after examining Uniting for Peace resolutions, major points, important points, we can find out that General Assembly also have a right for the maintenance of peace and security in specific circumstances, or when Security Council failed, then General Assembly can utilize its these powers. Next most important point of our discussion is about other various functions of the United Nations. The Charter explains different other functions and powers of the General Assembly. For example, to promote international cooperation in the political field and encourage the progressive development of international law. Next, promote international cooperation in the sphere of economic, social, cultural, educational, and health matters. Next, to assist in the realization of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. The General Assembly is authorized to pass any resolution for the progressive development of international law, but the recommendation of the Assembly is not mandatory and have no legally binding effect on its members. Acting under this authority, the Assembly has organized the International Law Commission to initiate studies and formulate draft codes to be submitted to the General Assembly. The Assembly has also recognized the international law embodied in the Nuremberg Tribunal and its judgments. It has itself accepted conventions on genocide in 1948 and conventions on elimination of all forms of radical discrimination in 1965. We can also examine that the Assembly's performance in this field has been less impressive than that of the Assembly of the League of the Nations. The United Nations recognized that international security requires general well-being and solution of economic and social problems of the world. So, the General Assembly entrusted with final responsibility to promote international economic and social cooperation. The Economic and Social Council has been established as a principal organ of the United Nations to initiate studies and reports with respect to international economic, social, cultural, educational, health, and related matters. The Charter has directed the Economic and Social Council to act under the authority of the General Assembly, a fact which upholds the overall responsibility of the General Assembly. The Economic and Social Council requires the approval of the General Assembly for much of its functions, including such issues as concluding agreements with the specialized agencies, calling international conferences, submitting draft resolutions for consideration by member states, and performance of services requested by members and specialized agencies. The Assembly exercises its authority over the Economic and Social Council and its subsidiary bodies through its Economic and Financial Committee and Social, Humanitarian and Cultural Committee and other standing committees. The General Assembly is also authorized to supervise over other organs of the United Nations. Article number 15 of the Charter directs that the General Assembly shall receive and consider reports from the other organs of the United Nations. The General Assembly, representing all member states, provides them opportunity to receive information about the activities and workings of all other organs. The annual report of the Secretary General analyzing the entire activities of the United Nations throughout the year, it is to be placed before the regular annual session of the General Assembly. The Security Council is directed to submit to the General Assembly regular and special reports containing an account of the measures which the Council has decided upon or taken for the preservation of world peace and security. The General Assembly, while considering these reports, may make recommendations on issues contained in the reports. On numerous occasions, the General Assembly has submitted a number of resolutions to the Security Council. The Economic and Social Council and the Trusteeship Council are under direct supervision of the Assembly. The General Assembly can also make any recommendation in regard to policies and operations of Economic and Social Council. The Assembly is also authorized to approve the budget of United Nations, and also Assembly can debate and approve the financial and budgetary arrangements with the specialized agencies and can examine the administrative budgets of these agencies with a view to making recommendations. During this discussion, we can very easily find out that General Assembly is empowered to participate along with the Security Council in the election of the Secretary General and in the election of judges of International Court of Justice. It has the sole power to elect the non-permanent members of the Security Council, the 27 members of the Economic and Social Council, and some members of the Trusteeship Council. All amendments of the Charter must be approved by a vote of 2/3 majority of the General Assembly, ratified in accordance with their respective constitutional processes by 2/3 of members of the United Nations, including all the permanent members of the Security Council. So it is very clear that any amendment of the Charter of the United Nations required two-thirds majority of the General Assembly's members and 5 permanent members of the Security Councils. United Nations, while discussing about United Nations most important organs, General Assembly, we can very easily explain here that different organs of United Nations and the member states themselves have welcomed a greater role of the General Assembly. The International Court of Justice, through an advisory opinion delivered on 20th July 1962, supported wide authority of the Assembly to initiate and conduct peacekeeping and peacemaking operations on the basis of Article number 1, 5, 6, 11, 14, 17, 18 and 22 of the United Nations Charters. The court observed the functions of the General Assembly for which it may establish such subsidiary organs include, for example, investigation, observation and supervision, but the way in which the subsidiary organs are utilized depends on the consent of the state concerned. The Secretary Generals of the UN have played constructive and important role in implementing Assembly's recommendations in different crises and in different situations. The major powers have also contributed to growing role of the General Assembly through the initiative of UK, USA, Poland and other states. The disputes of Greece, Korea, Palestine, Spain were placed before the Assembly for consideration and recommendation of measures to restore peace and security. The big powers began to utilize the Assembly as a forum for mobilizations of support from the medium and small nation states. The Assembly offers an arena for expression of views for worldwide publicity. The small and medium nation states have welcomed the expanding role of the General Assembly. The newly independent Afro-Asian states have obtained greater opportunity through the Assembly to influence the course of decisions and operations of the United Nations. During 74 years of its working, the General Assembly has evolved its own peacekeeping procedures and has set up a number of ad hoc bodies and subsidiary organs to deal with different crisis situations. The expanding activities of the General Assembly have not been confined to political and security questions. The General Assembly is entitled also to exercise its supervisory authority over the Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council, and specialized agencies of the United Nations. So, it has become customary, however, for members to bring matters directly to the Assembly if they have failed to obtain what they believe to be satisfactory treatment before these organs. General Assembly as a most important organ of the United Nations, supervisory body and central body, the General Assembly on several occasions organized welfare services. The United Nations Relief Works Agency was instituted to provide relief to the Palestine refugees and different refugees from different parts settled by the United Nations General Assembly. The United Nations Korean Reconstruction Agency has undertaken broad development program for economic reconstruction of war devastated Korea. The seventh special session of General Assembly was invoked through the initiative of non-aligned countries to discuss the problems of development and cooperation. The seventh special session debated on 6 major areas: concern international trade, transfer of real resources, international monetary reforms, science and technology, industrialization, food and agriculture, and reconstructing of economic and social sectors of the United Nations system. As a town meeting of the world, the General Assembly furnishes an area for expression of views for worldwide publicity. United Nations General Assembly is not only a forum of debate and acceptance of resolution, but it is a center of multi-dimensional activities for a complex international system, and its activities have an impact in a variety of ways on the conduct of nation states. So, while concluding this detailed discussion, I explain here that General Assembly is playing central forum, a major organ of the United Nations, and according to membership, it is the largest body of the United Nations, because all members of the United Nations are become the member of the General Assembly. Present membership is 193. General Assembly also considered as a global parliament, as an international forum, as a town meeting of the world, and as a sun of the United Nations solar system. And this is the end of our today's discussion.